electrostatic discharge, also called ESD. So, what is ESD? ESD is the sudden and momentary electric current which flows between two objects when they come in contact with each other, either directly or if it is induced via an electrostatic discharge. And this current flows because both of the objects are at different electrical potential. So it is a serious issue in solid-state electronics, such as integrated circuits, because integrated circuits are made from silicon and silicon dioxide. And either of these materials can suffer permanent damage when subjected to high voltages. That's why we should handle integrated circuits with anti-static devices to avoid this permanent damage. The main causes of ESD are hand coverings, ungrounded workers walking with ESD items. There can be ESD items being transported on ungrounded trolleys. There can be open bags, trays, and containers in which these ESD items are kept. There can be aged anti-static packaging. These are some of the main ways by which ESD can be caused. Now let's talk about some preventative actions to avoid ESD. So the first one is the ESD protected floor. So the equipment which comes into contact with an ESD sensitive surface must be grounded. If possible, they should be made of an electrostatic dissipative material. Examples of this equipment are trolleys and the work surfaces on which these ESD sensitive components are kept. Then the people who handle these ESD sensitive components must wear a wrist strap, an anti-static wrist strap, and ESD footwear. And if they are wearing ESD protective clothing, then there should not be any metal parts exposed to the ESD-sensitive components. Now, how should we handle these ESD-sensitive materials? If there is any charge-generating packaging material, it should never be kept in the work area. Components should not be taken out from the box until they are ready to be used, and when the parts are taken outside the protected area, they must be transported in protective packaging. And while handling the plug-in unit, they should be handled either from the front or from the side of the panel. The solder joints and pins at the bottom of the plug-in unit should never be touched. So these are some of the actions that we can take to avoid permanent damage to our plug-in units due to ESD. Next on the agenda are environmental aspects. Nokia maintains the ISO 14001 certificate for the environment. In this topic, we will talk about electronic waste management and the transportation of hazardous materials and waste. Today, in the age of line modernization, a lot of legacy material is dismantled. So, Nokia has a responsibility to dispose of this material in the most environmentally friendly manner. Also, Nokia has some guidelines that should be followed while transporting the hazardous material from one place to another in a more secure and environmentally friendly way. Electronic waste management can be handled in three ways: reuse, recycle, and resell. In case of reuse, we can refurbish the obsolete material into useful modules. Recycling or disposal of the obsolete network elements can be done in an environmentally friendly way. We can also resell pre-owned redundant telecom equipment. So, before using the material in any of these three ways, there are some guidelines which should be followed for waste management. Prior to handling a disposal, if possible, we should characterize all the waste prior to generation. We should provide the proper training and information on handling procedures to the people who handle this waste. We should manage and reduce waste generation by applying pollution prevention and waste minimization rules. And this should be followed at both process and facility levels. We should only use HSSE-approved hazardous and electronic waste management facilities. And if Nokia requests a subcontractor, he should be able to provide Nokia with documentation of waste management. So these are some guidelines that we should follow while handling electronic waste. Now let's look at some guidelines to follow for the transportation of hazardous materials and waste. The transporter who is transporting this material must be registered or licensed by local authorities. The packaging in which these hazardous materials are transported must be designed and constructed accordingly so that there is no release of the hazardous materials to the environment. People who are handling these hazardous materials should be properly informed. People coming directly in contact with the hazardous materials, like the person who loads and uploads or transports these materials. Proper training should be provided to external parties who are acting on behalf of Nokia for the transportation of hazardous materials. Any employee or authorized designated person should sign a manifest or equivalent document for hazardous materials, including hazardous waste and electronic scrap.